The golden light dims. The elden beast lies still, its cosmic form dissolving into stardust that drifts upward through the endless void. Your breathing echoes in the sudden silence, broken only by the soft crackle of fading magic. Before you, suspended in ethereal chains of light, Queen Marika the Eternal hangs fractured and broken, her body split like shattered porcelain, revealing the crimson-haired Radagon within. The weight of your journey crashes down upon your shoulders in this moment of absolute stillness. Every death, every triumph, every fragment of truth you've pieced together across the lands between has led to this singular instant of choice. Welcome, lore seekers, to another deep dive with Keen 7 lore, where today we stand at the crossroads of fate itself. The broken form of a god awaits your decision, and with it, the future of an entire world hangs in the balance. 6 paths stretch out before the tarnished, each one capable of reshaping reality according to a different vision, a different philosophy, a different understanding of what it means to hold absolute power in a world that has known only suffering. The lands between exists in a state of perpetual twilight, caught between death and undeath, order and chaos, meaning and madness. The shattering broke more than just the Elden Ring. It fractured the very foundation of existence itself. Immortality has become a curse, with the dead walking as those who live in death, while the living cannot truly die. Demigods hoard their great rooms like dragons hoarding gold, each one mad with power yet powerless to claim true victory. The golden order that once promised eternal prosperity has revealed itself as a cage, beautiful perhaps, but a cage nonetheless. Standing here in the heart of the Erd Tree, or perhaps beyond it in some space between spaces, you hold the power to brandish the Elden Ring anew. But what form will your order take? What philosophy will guide the next age? The mended ring pulses with potential in your hands, waiting to be shaped by your will, your vision, your understanding of what the world needs. Or perhaps what it deserves. The irony isn't lost on anyone who has traveled this far. A tarnished, once cast out and stripped of grace, now holds the power to determine the fate of those who cast them aside. The lords who scorned you, the world that rejected you, now lies prostrate before your judgment. Yet with this power comes a terrible burden. Who are you to decide the fate of millions? What wisdom have you gained from your journey through blood and ash that qualifies you to play God? These are the questions that haunt the throne room as you approach. Fractured Marika. The paths before you aren't merely different endings to a story, they're fundamental philosophies about existence itself, each one born from the suffering and dreams of those you've encountered on your journey. Some seek to restore what was lost, others to perfect what was flawed, and still others to burn it all away and start anew. There is no guidance here, no objective marker pointing you toward the correct choice. The greater will is silent, if it ever truly spoke at all. You stand alone with your decision, as perhaps all who would be gods must stand. The default path stretches out before you first, deceptively simple in its presentation. The Age of Fracture represents the most straightforward choice. Take the Elden Ring as it is, fractured and imperfect, and brandish it to become Elden Lord. This is the path Melina hoped you would take, the restoration she died for if you allowed her sacrifice. The Golden Order continues, wounded but not transformed, and you take your place upon the throne as its new guardian and prisoner. But what does this restoration truly mean? The Greater Will's influence remains intact, its alien logic still governing the fundamental laws of reality. The Erd Tree still towers over the land, beautiful and terrible, its roots drinking deep from the catacombs below, where the dead are transformed into its sustenance. The very problems that led to the shattering remain unaddressed. The gods are still fickle, still capable of the madness that consumed Marika when she shattered the Elden Ring in her grief and rage. The system that created Godric's grotesque grafting, Ricard's blasphemous consumption, and Melinia's scarlet rot remains fundamentally unchanged. You become Elden Lord, yes, but Lord of what exactly? A kingdom of ash and ambition, where the strong still devour the weak, where the outer gods still play their cosmic games with mortal pawns. The throne you claim is the same throne that drove Marika to madness, the same power that corrupted everything it touched. Your rule might bring a temporary peace, a brief respite from the chaos of the shattering, but the fundamental contradictions remain. Another war is inevitable, another breaking, another cycle of violence and despair. The restoration feels hollow because it is hollow. You've replaced a broken god with yourself, but the system that broke that god remains intact. The people of the lands between continue to suffer under the same cosmic order that treated them as resources to be harvested, souls to be recycled through the Erd tree's roots. Those who live in death remain abominations to be hunted. The omens remain cursed and despised. The Albanorics remain artificial beings deemed unworthy of grace. You've won the game, but the game itself remains rigged. Yet perhaps there's something to be said for stability, even imperfect stability. The lands between has known only chaos since the shattering. Towns lie in ruins, trade routes are severed by war, and ordinary people huddle in fear of mad demigods and their endless conflicts. Your ascension, flawed as it might be, at least ends the immediate crisis. The fighting stops, if only because there's finally a clear victor. Sometimes that's all people really want, an end to the uncertainty, even if the certainty that replaces it is far from ideal. This is the ending of exhaustion, of a warrior too tired to dream of anything better than what came before. It's the choice of someone who has seen too much horror to believe in transformation, who settles for restoration because revolution seems impossible. The throne accepts you, the Erd tree acknowledges your claim, and the world continues its slow spiral toward another breaking, another hero, another choice that will likely be just as limited as your own. If you're finding this exploration of Elden Ring's profound endings fascinating, consider subscribing to support the channel and join our growing community of lore enthusiasts. Your support truly makes these deep investigations possible, allowing us to unravel the mysteries that From Software has woven into their worlds. But what if the Golden Order's flaws stem not from its structure, but from its architects? This is the question that consumed Goldmask, the ever-brilliant saint who spent his existence contemplating the mathematical perfection that should underlie divine order. His silent meditations, guided by your discoveries and Brother Corhin's desperate interpretations, led to a revelation that shook the foundations of faith itself. The gods, Goldmask realized, were the problem. Not their power, but their personalities, their fickleness, their all-too-human flaws magnified by cosmic authority. The Age of Perfect Order represents a radical reformation of divine law. Through the mending rune of perfect order, you don't simply restore the Golden Order, you perfect it, stripping away the volatile personalities of gods and replacing them with pure, unwavering cosmic law. No more will gods love and hate, rage and grieve, bless and curse according to their whims. The new order operates according to absolute principles, mathematical in their precision, unwavering in their application. Brother Corhin followed Goldmask seeking meaning, seeking purpose in a world that seemed to have lost both. What he found instead was a truth that broke him. The gods were never worthy of worship. They were simply beings with power, as petty and flawed as any human, only infinitely more dangerous because of their cosmic authority. Marika's grief over her firstborn's death led her to shatter the Elden Ring. Radagon's obsession with perfection created the fundamentalist hunters who persecuted anyone deemed imperfect. The Two Fingers themselves, claimed to be envoys of the greater will, may have been acting on their own interpretation rather than direct divine communication. Under the Age of Perfect Order, such chaos becomes impossible. The mathematics of existence operate without emotion, without bias, without the possibility of divine tantrums reshaping reality. It's a world of absolute fairness, where the laws of nature apply equally to all, where no amount of prayer or sacrifice can bend the rules in your favor. The golden light that bathes this new age is cold, calculating, perfect in its indifference. But perfection comes at a cost that even Goldmask, in all his brilliance, might not have fully grasped. A world without divine caprice is also a world without divine mercy. The mathematical order doesn't care about suffering, it only cares about consistency. A child dying of disease receives the same cosmic indifference as a tyrant choking on his wine. The new order is perfectly fair, which means it's perfectly cruel to those who need compassion more than justice. Free will itself becomes questionable under such rigid cosmic law. If everything operates according to unbending mathematical principles, where is the room for choice, for growth, for the beautiful chaos of consciousness? The perfect order might solve the problem of fickle gods, but it replaces them with something that might be worse. A universe that runs like clockwork, precise and predictable, with every creature merely a cog in an incomprehensibly vast machine. Goldmask's vision appeals to those exhausted by divine hypocrisy, those who have seen too many suffer because they didn't fit the arbitrary standards of grace. It promises a world where your worth isn't determined by whether the light of grace shines in your eyes, where your fate isn't subject to the whims of entities that view you as insects. It's the ultimate expression of law over chaos, order over entropy, system over sovereignty. Yet standing before Marika's broken form, preparing to impose this perfect order upon the world, you might wonder if perfection itself is the greatest imperfection of all. Humans, tarnished, even gods perhaps, are defined by their flaws as much as their virtues. To perfect the world might be to destroy what makes it worth saving in the first place. The mathematics might be beautiful, but beauty itself is a subjective experience that has no place in Goldmask's equations. Death, however, offers its own solution to the world's suffering. Fia, the deathbed companion, understood something that the Golden Order tried desperately to deny. Death is not the enemy of life, but its necessary partner. The age of the Duskborn doesn't seek perfection or restoration, but completion, bringing back the natural cycle that the Golden Order broke in its pursuit of eternal life. The tragedy of the lands between isn't just war and madness, it's the fundamental violation of nature itself. Destined death was sealed away, confined within Malekith's black blade, leaving the world in a state of grotesque immortality. The dead cannot die, the living cannot truly live, and existence becomes a mockery of itself. Bodies pile up in catacombs, fed to the Erd tree's roots. Those who live in death shamble through the world, rejected by the Golden Order, yet unable to find peace. The demigods themselves are trapped in eternal stalemate, unable to defeat each other permanently, turning to increasingly desperate and horrific measures in their endless war. Fia saw the suffering of those who live in death and chose to embrace them, offering comfort to those deemed abominations. Her quest leads to the Prince of Death himself, Godwyn the Golden, whose assassination began the entire tragedy. Godwyn died in soul but not in body, becoming the first of the undead, spreading his death root throughout the lands between like a cancer of unlife. Yet Fia sees not a monster but a victim, not a plague but a symptom of a broken world. The mending rune of the Death Prince doesn't simply restore death, it integrates it into the fundamental order of existence. The age of the Duskborn is shrouded in fog, a gentle darkness that isn't evil but natural, like the quiet that comes with evening. In this new age, those who live in death are no longer abominations but accepted parts of the cycle. Death becomes not an ending but a transformation, a return to the cosmic wholeness from which all life emerges. This is perhaps the most compassionate of all endings, born from genuine empathy for the suffering of others. Fia doesn't seek power or perfection but healing for a wounded world. The restoration of death means the restoration of meaning. Life gains value when it can end. Achievement matters when failure is possible. Love becomes precious when loss is real. The fog that shrouds this age isn't hiding anything. It's revealing the truth that the Golden Order's blazing light tried to blind everyone to. Mortality is what makes us human. Yet this compassion extends even to the uncomfortable truth that not everyone wants to die. The Golden Order, for all its flaws, offered the promise of eternal life, a dream that has captivated humanity since the dawn of consciousness. To restore death is to take away that dream, to force mortality upon those who might prefer even a flawed immortality to the certainty of ending. The age of the Duskborn might be more natural, but natural has never been synonymous with good. Nature includes disease, predation, and entropy alongside growth and renewal. The quiet melancholy of this ending reflects its philosophical foundation. It's not a triumphant restoration or a perfect order, but a gentle acceptance of limitation. Under the dusk-born moon, the world doesn't blaze with golden light or cold perfection, but rests in the soft darkness of acceptance. It's an ending for those who have made peace with loss, who understand that trying to hold on to everything forever only leads to losing everything that matters. But perhaps equality can be achieved through a different path entirely. The loathsome Dung Eater, reviled and feared throughout the lands between, proposes a solution so horrible that it loops around to become almost logical. If the world despises and curses the omens, if it treats difference as defilement, then why not defile everything equally? The blessing of despair spreads the omen curse to every living being, creating a world where no one can claim superiority because everyone is equally cursed. The Dung Eater's philosophy is born from the deepest wells of resentment and transformed into a twisted form of justice. He sees the hypocrisy of a golden order that claims perfection while creating outcasts, that preaches grace while practicing persecution. The omens, born with horns and cursed features, are imprisoned beneath the capital, their horns cut off in childhood, treated as monsters despite having committed no crime except existing. Even royal blood couldn't fully protect them. Morgoth and Mohg, twin sons of the golden lineage, were hidden away in the sewers like shameful secrets. The seed-bag curse that the Dung Eater plants in his victims doesn't just kill them, it ensures their souls are cursed forever, unable to return to the Erdtree, unable to find peace in any afterlife. It's described as one of the most loathsome things in all the lands between, and yet there's a perverse logic to its horror. If the world insists on creating hierarchies of worth, on deciding who deserves grace and who deserves suffering based on arbitrary characteristics, then perhaps the only solution is to drag everyone down to the same level. Under the blessing of despair, the Erdtree itself loses its golden light, becoming something diseased and wrong. The world doesn't end but transforms into a place where suffering is the universal constant. Every birth brings forth an omen, every soul is marked with the curse, and the very concept of grace becomes meaningless because there's no one left to receive it. The outer gods themselves might turn away from such a defiled world, unable or unwilling to influence a reality so thoroughly corrupted. This is equality through universal suffering, justice through mutual damnation. It solves the problem of discrimination by making everyone equally discriminated against. It ends persecution by making everyone both persecutor and persecuted. The Dung Eater's vision is perhaps the most honest about what the lands between has already become. A world of suffering where the only difference is that some suffer in gold-trimmed towers while others suffer in sewers. Yet there's something deeply human about choosing this ending, as horrible as it seems. It comes from the same impulse that makes people say, if I can't have it, no one can. It's the ultimate expression of spite, of refusing to accept a world that rejected you. The tarnished who chooses this path doesn't seek to rule or reform, but to ensure that everyone understands what it feels like to be cursed, to be rejected, to be deemed unworthy of grace. The blessing of despair might be the most revolutionary ending in its own twisted way. It doesn't try to fix the system or perfect it, but acknowledges that the system itself is so fundamentally broken that the only solution is to break everything else to match. It's an ending that says if the world insists on creating monsters, then let everyone be monsters together. At least then the word loses its meaning. But what if the problem runs deeper than any order, any system, any attempt at restoration or reformation? The Lord of Frenzied Flame doesn't seek to fix the world but to unmake it entirely, to burn away not just the golden order but the very concept of order itself. This is the path of the three fingers, the path of chaos, the path that leads to an ending so final that nothing remains but the potential for something entirely new, or perhaps nothing at all. The tragedy of the merchants beneath Lanedale tells us everything we need to know about why someone might choose this path. An entire civilization buried alive, entombed in darkness for the crime of being different, their music silenced, their culture destroyed. In their despair, they called out to something, anything that might answer their suffering. The Frenzied Flame responded, not with salvation, but with the promise of ending the very world that could create such suffering. Hieta, blind prophet of chaos, reveals the cosmic truth that underlies this ending. Everything that exists came from the One Great, a primordial unity that was fractured into the multiplicity of existence. The greater will, in creating distinction and difference, created the possibility for suffering. As long as there are separate beings, there will be conflict. As long as there is individuality, there will be loneliness. As long as there is order, there will be those who fall outside it. The only solution is to melt it all away with the yellow chaos flame until all is one again. The three fingers' embrace burns the tarnished from within, transforming them into a vessel for cosmic dissolution. Your head becomes a crucible of chaos, your body a furnace that will consume everything. Even Melina, devoted companion who guided you this far, turns away in horror. She can be saved from her fate as kindling, but the cost is her complete rejection. You are no longer her tarnished, no longer even truly human. You are chaos incarnate, the herald of unmaking. May chaos take the world. These words echo through the final moments as you claim the Elden Ring, only to reduce it to nothing. The Erd Tree burns not with cleansing fire, but with the flame of unmaking. The golden order, the perfect order, any order at all becomes impossible. The world doesn't transform, it dissolves, returning to the primordial chaos from which it emerged. Is this destruction or liberation? The merchants who summoned this flame saw it as justice, a way to ensure that the world that buried them alive could never hurt anyone again. The adherents of chaos see it as the ultimate freedom, liberation from the tyranny of existence itself. No more suffering because there's no one left to suffer. No more injustice because there's no distinction between just and unjust. No more loneliness because all consciousness returns to the singular flame. Yet Melina's fury suggests something else. She promises to deliver destined death to you, to hunt you across whatever remains of existence, to stop the spread of chaos. Her reaction implies that the Frenzied Flame isn't just ending suffering, but ending the possibility of joy, love, growth, and meaning. The One Great that Hieta speaks of might be unity, but it's the unity of non-existence, the peace of never having been. The Lord of Chaos ending is simultaneously the most nihilistic and the most optimistic choice. Nihilistic because it sees no value in existence worth preserving. Optimistic because it believes that something better might emerge from the ashes, or that nothingness itself is preferable to the current state of suffering. It's the choice of someone who has seen too much, suffered too much, and decided that the only winning move is not to play. Yet for all these grand philosophies and cosmic transformations, one ending stands apart in its complete rejection of the throne itself. The Age of Stars doesn't seek to claim the Elden Ring or reform it, but to remove it entirely from the equation. Ranni the Witch offers something none of the others do, true freedom from the cycles of divine intervention, even if that freedom comes with the cold darkness of uncertainty. Ranni's quest is the longest and most complex for good reason. She isn't simply another demigod seeking power, but a revolutionary who orchestrated her own death to escape the greater will's influence. The Night of Black Knives, which saw Godwyn's assassination and began the chain of events leading to the shattering, was her design. She killed her own Empyrean flesh, splitting herself into a spirit bound to a doll, all to slip free from the fate the greater will intended for her. The Age of Stars begins with a wedding, a union between the Tarnished and Ranni that is both romantic and cosmic in its implications. Together, you don't claim the throne, but abandon it. Ranni becomes a goddess, not of the lands between, but of a different order entirely, one aligned with the moon and stars rather than the Erd Tree. She takes this new order and physically removes it from the world, embarking on a 1,000-year journey through the cosmos, leaving the lands between without any divine authority whatsoever. This is the fear, doubt, and loneliness of the chill night that Ranni speaks of. Without the Erd Tree's golden guidance, without any outer god's influence, the people of the lands between must forge their own path. The comfort of divine providence is replaced by the terror and freedom of self-determination. The stars, once sealed by Radon to prevent their influence, now wheel freely overhead, their guidance subtle and distant rather than the imposing presence of the Erd Tree. Ranni's order is explicitly described as one that cannot be seen, felt, or touched. It exists but doesn't impose. It guides but doesn't command. This is perhaps the closest thing to true free will that the lands between can achieve. No greater will dictating fate, no golden order determining worth, no frenzied flame consuming choice itself. Just conscious beings left to make their own decisions, their own mistakes, their own meaning in a universe that no longer tells them what they should be. The 1,000-year journey Ranni embarks upon with her consort isn't rulership but exploration. She seeks to understand the cosmos beyond the narrow confines of the greater will's design, to discover what other possibilities exist beyond the binary of order and chaos. The lands between is left to develop naturally, without divine intervention, without cosmic manipulation, without the cycles of rise and fall dictated by entities that view mortals as pawns in incomprehensible games. This ending appeals to those who see the fundamental problem, not as which order to impose, but the very concept of imposed order itself. Every other ending, even the chaos of the Frenzied Flame, represents a form of tyranny. The Age of Stars alone offers genuine autonomy, even if that autonomy comes with the existential dread of having no one to blame for your suffering and no one to credit for your success. The cold and dark that Ranni brings isn't evil but honest. The universe has always been cold and dark. The golden order just covered it with a comforting lie. The stars have always been distant and incomprehensible. The Erd Tree just blocked them from view. The Age of Stars strips away the illusions and leaves reality bare, challenging the people of the lands between to grow beyond their need for cosmic parents telling them how to live. These 6 endings represent more than different conclusions to a story. They embody fundamental philosophies about existence, power, freedom, and meaning. Each one emerges from the suffering witnessed throughout the journey. Each one attempts to address the core problems of the lands between, and each one reveals something about the tarnished who chooses it. The choice between them isn't meant to have a correct answer. Miyazaki himself has stated that the fragmented storytelling, the ambiguity, the lack of clear moral guidance is intentional. The gameplay itself becomes the player's story, and the ending they choose reflects their own interpretation of what they've experienced. There is no canonical good ending because goodness itself is subjective, contextual, dependent on whose perspective you adopt. Consider what each ending says about power. The Age of Fracture accepts power as it is, flawed but necessary. The Perfect Order tries to remove personality from power, making it mechanical and predictable. The Age of the Duskborn integrates death into power, acknowledging limitation as strength. The Blessing of Despair weaponizes suffering as power, ensuring everyone shares in its burden. The Frenzied Flame rejects power entirely, burning it all away. The Age of Stars removes power from the immediate world, placing it at an unreachable distance where it can guide but not control. Each philosophy has merit and horror in equal measure. The restoration of the Golden Order provides stability but perpetuates oppression. The Perfect Order eliminates divine caprice but might eliminate free will alongside it. The Duskborn Age brings natural cycles but forces mortality on those who might not want it. The Blessing of Despair achieves equality through universal suffering. The Frenzied Flame ends pain by ending everything. The Age of Stars grants freedom but abandons people to face existence alone. The burden of choice weighs heaviest on those who understand there are no perfect solutions. Every ending requires sacrifice, compromise, or acceptance of terrible consequences. The Tarnished, who stands before Marika's broken form, carries not just the power to reshape the world, but the responsibility for whatever shape it takes. You cannot abstain from choosing. Even walking away is a choice that leaves the world in its fractured state. The developers understood that players would bring their own philosophies, their own experiences, their own traumas and hopes to this moment. Someone who has suffered under rigid systems might choose the chaos of the Frenzied Flame. Someone who values freedom above security might choose the Age of Stars. Someone exhausted by complexity might choose the simple restoration of the Age of Fracture. Each choice is valid, because each reflects a genuine response to the question of how to address suffering in an imperfect world. What makes these endings truly meaningful is that they emerge naturally from the lore and world building throughout the game. Every NPC questline that leads to an ending mending rune reveals the philosophy behind it through story rather than exposition. Fia's compassion for the undead, Goldmask's silent contemplation, the Dung Eater's violent resentment, Ranni's elaborate rebellion, each one shows rather than tells why someone might choose their path. The game asks players to engage with these philosophies not academically but emotionally, through the connections formed with these characters. When you choose an ending, you're not just selecting a philosophical position but honoring or rejecting the dreams of those who helped you reach this moment. The weight of their hopes, their suffering, their vision for a better or different world influences the choice in ways that pure logic cannot capture. As we reach the conclusion of this exploration into the meanings behind Elden Ring's endings, it's worth reflecting on what your choice reveals about you. The ending you gravitate towards speaks to your own relationship with power, suffering, freedom, and meaning. There's no judgment in this, only recognition that we all bring ourselves to the art we experience, and in choosing how to end this tale, we reveal something about our own tales. The lands between will never truly heal, not fully, not perfectly. Each ending simply chooses which scars to bear, which wounds to leave open, which compromises to make with an imperfect reality. The Tarnished becomes not a savior, but a decision maker, someone who must choose between imperfect options because perfect ones don't exist. This is perhaps the most honest thing about Elden Ring's endings. They acknowledge that power doesn't solve problems so much as transform them into different problems. Yet in this acknowledgement lies a strange kind of hope. If there are no perfect endings, then there are also no complete failures. Each choice carries forward something worth preserving, even if it comes at tremendous cost. The restored Golden Order maintains stability. The perfect order achieves fairness. The Duskborn age brings peace. Even the blessing of despair achieves equality, and the Frenzied Flame offers its own twisted form of unity. The Age of Stars grants the terrible gift of freedom. Your journey through the lands between has prepared you for this moment, not by giving you the right answer, but by showing you that every answer comes from somewhere real, from genuine suffering and genuine hope for something better. The bosses you fought, the ruins you've explored, the items' descriptions you've puzzled over, all of it builds toward this moment where you must decide not what is right, but what you can live with. The beauty of Elden Ring's ending structure is that it honors the complexity of these choices without simplifying them into good versus evil. It trusts players to engage with difficult questions and make meaningful decisions based on incomplete information and imperfect options. This is perhaps the most realistic thing about a game filled with dragons and magic. The recognition that power doesn't come with instructions, that leadership means choosing between flawed options, and that every utopia is someone else's dystopia. Thank you, fellow Tarnished, for joining me on this deep exploration of fate, choice, and meaning in the lands between. If this investigation into Elden Ring's profound endings has enriched your understanding of the game's philosophical depths, please consider subscribing to the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments about which ending you chose and what it meant to you. Did you restore the Golden Order, seeking stability in familiar structures? Did you embrace the cold freedom of the stars? Or did you choose one of the other paths, each with its own terrible wisdom? Your perspectives and interpretations add layers to our collective understanding of this masterpiece. Every playthrough, every choice, every interpretation contributes to the living lore that surrounds these games. Here at King 7 Lore, we believe that the community's engagement with these stories is just as important as the stories themselves. Your chosen ending is your story, your statement about what you believe the world needs or deserves. Until next time, may you find your own meaning in the spaces between light and dark, order and chaos, hope and despair. The throne awaits your decision, but remember, the choice has always been yours to make. Thank you for walking this path with me, and I'll see you in the next deep dive into gaming's most intricate and meaningful worlds.